A second day of Georgetown University having to tear down disturbing flyers covered in violent rhetoric that mirrors the same messaging found on bullet cases in Charlie Kirk's assassination. The flyers are recruiting radical members for a far-left gun club with ties to political violence. Georgetown denouncing the flyers for a second day and reporting them to the FBI. But even so, conservative students say they still don't feel safe.
I'll be honest, my first emotion was fear.
It made me feel very upset. I'm here at Georgetown. I'm the president of Georgetown Right to Life, and over the years, I've heard many hateful things against conservatives, and this was so blatant and in people's faces that it made me feel very worried for my other friends who share my similar beliefs.
I've seen other material that likens Trump to Hitler, the conservatives to fascists, and the conservative movement on campus to Nazism.
It comes as political tensions are hitting a boiling point, especially with Gen Z, where 20% say violence is sometimes justified in order to achieve political goals. Joining us now, the Federalist reporter, Brianna Lyman, America Values PAC spokesperson, Caitlin Sinclair, and entrepreneur, Cade Sawyers. Great to see all of you. Brianna, there is just no space provided even now for conservatives on college campuses. And I read the article that was in the New York Times that was just kind of fascinating, what I learned as a liberal faculty advisor for a Turning Point USA chapter, that the fact that a Turning Point USA chapter had to have kind of a liberal guardian on this one campus.
Yeah, and there's no safe spaces precisely because universities are infested with people who have things like the John Brown Club, which I think is really important to talk about. John Brown is a man who saw violence as a political tool. Think Harper's Ferry, think Bleeding Kansas. And modern day leftists are trying to resurrect that same playbook. They want to legitimize and justify political violence. Now, the way they do it is by calling Republicans, Charlie Kirk, President Trump, Hitler, fascist, Nazis, because they want to try and justify resistance to Hitler, to fascism, any means necessary. That's concerning, and we need to have a serious conversation, not just Democrats, but also Republicans, because the longer we let this fester, the worse it's going to get.
Yeah, Caitlin, there doesn't seem to be an equal application of justice, not at the college level and other levels. They seem to justify it, just as she was talking about. Absolutely. So what do we need to do?
Well, let's go back to George Floyd and that death for a second. Georgetown University shut down their entire campus. Professors canceled class, therapy dogs were brought in. They went above and beyond for the grieving students. But when a conservative is murdered, silence. I think what we need to do is look at what's happening with the younger cohort, because what I know is the younger generations are done with being ashamed of their conservative values. They are done with being told to be silent for their Christian faith, and they are done with apologizing for loving America. And what we're about to see, you heard it here first, what we're about to see is Gen Z and Gen Alpha become the most conservative generations that we have seen in 50 years. So I hope the universities are ready for that.
Some of those, but some of those liberal campuses, when Hillary Clinton lost her campaign, they had to shut down the office and have crying days. But sorry, go ahead.
It was like the CFO, I think it was at Google, was crying in a meeting after Hillary Clinton lost. And also the most rooted in their spirituality and their biblical beliefs. And it's not, what we've seen since Charlie Kirk's assassination is kind of incredible from conservatives. And it's not what we saw after George Floyd's death. It is peaceful, and it is spiritual, and it is godly. And it's up to the Democrats, it's up to the leftists and the liberals. They need to bring down the rhetoric. They need to stand up for law and order to make sure everyone is protected and all their speech is protected.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I went to law school, I graduated in May, and one of the big debates we would always get in law school is church and state are separate. They are, but no one said we cannot advocate for godly Christian values across this nation every single day. And I'll tell you, one of those articles, they reference the divide. I don't think we have a divide like a lot of people are saying exactly. I actually think this generation is waking up and they're becoming beautiful, prosperous people, but I do think there's a small section that is soulless. And I think it's up to our job, it's up to us as Americans, as capitalists, as people of faith, to fill that hole with anything that we can do for those young people in America.
Yeah, that nihilism that you talk about, where people aren't rooted in any sort of belief system, they aren't rooted in believing in God or anything. You don't have to be the same religion. And I think that was the message of Charlie Kirk. How do you see that assassination? What's it doing, Brianna, to the younger generation? What's the message do you think that's going to carry on through this generation?
Well, I think speaking in terms of religion, look, the founders were very clear. Our Constitution was made for a moral and religious people. And Charlie Kirk was able to really shepherd that message to the younger generation in a way that Republicans have not been able to do. And so it's even more painful that we lost him, because he was a team leader where you felt like you wouldn't lose with him on your side. And he was just getting that religious revival started. I think a lot of people opened their Bibles for the first time, and I'm hopeful his wife, under her guidance, will continue that.
Caitlin, one thing, like listening to all of the rhetoric from the left, it uses the words like Nazi and fascist. It's when you paint an entire part of the population as people who are trying to take away what is most dear to you and trying to, again, didn't we hear existential threat? Like conservatives are an existential threat and they're a danger to your way of life. It will radicalize people. And that's what needs to stop, not the way that conservatives speak or behave.
Right, and that's what the problem with these college campuses that
Right.
we're seeing. And the good news is parents are waking up, and even students are waking up, and they are rejecting the radical left ideology that we're seeing coming out of these universities. And when it comes to attacking faith, I think it's so beautiful what we all said. That's what's really affecting the young generation. I can share with your audience, I worked for Charlie all of last year, and I expressed to some of my Turning Point family that I was struggling with my faith. And instead of being met with judgment, every single one of those conversations, I was met with encouragement and love and kindness. And that was the culture that Charlie cultivated. And that's the culture I think that is currently in our young people across these universities, and I really hope will spread.
Brianna, Caitlin, and Cage, I wish I had more time, but this camera's going to turn off in about 5 seconds. Thank you so
all.
much for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Appreciate you guys.